Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Sertac Yeltekin from Purpose Venture Capital. Since March 2021, Purpose Venture Capital has started a series called Leaders of Purpose. This is a discussion series where we invite investors, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders to address the global challenges we face, including poverty, inequality, food security, climate change, environment. And we invite especially leaders in the startup ecosystem and those who actually play a part in developing sustainable solutions to the world's biggest problems. So there's always a technology angle. And today, on June 10th, we have three leaders of purpose sharing their insights and perspectives on future trends, why the future of VC investment is in Asia, how we could build a better world through our investments and innovations. Now, we will have four actually leaders attending the series today. We have Hyuk-Tae, Kwon, Mohan Belani, and Jay Lee and Vaughan Leong, who will be with us and will take roughly an hour to discuss interesting moments that the tech is facing in this particular moment. Now, let me actually, without further ado, leave the word to our panelists. And I think our panelists here are eager to speak about themselves. So let me take a round and see for a few minutes if they can present themselves and give an insight about what they do and how they actually tackle the tech angle. Now, let me start with Hyuk-Tae. You are an investor, so you represent the investment family. Can you just give us a brief introduction on yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Hyuk-Tae Kwon, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Pine Venture Partners. We're a Singapore-based multifamily office, primarily invest in fast-growing tech startups. So our one tagline for our fund is invest in companies and entrepreneurs who can take human societies forward in a meaningful way, as well as in a scalable way. So our investments include companies like Smart Study, which is a very well-known South Korean company behind kids content like Baby Shark, Ping Pong, and many others. And notable Singapore-based portfolios include Igloo Company, which is a leading smart lock and access management company. Artisan, which is the largest indoor vertical farm here in Singapore, working on local food sustainability issue, and Zoombet, which is the largest online pet consultation company. So I generally like companies who can start in one place and can grow globally outside of their home market.
And how long have you been in Singapore?
I've been in Singapore collectively about 6 years. I first came here in 2011 with an American investment bank as an analyst, and I left Singapore to pursue entrepreneurship in the US as well as China. But I came back in 2018, and I think I'm gonna be here for quite some time.
Excellent. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, how about Mohan, yourself? If you can just introduce yourself briefly.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Sertac and Vaughan. Hi, my name is Mohan. I run a tech ecosystem platform called E27. So our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the tools to build and grow their companies. And we've been around for quite a while, so we've seen the tech ecosystem really grow over the last few years. And on my free time on the side, I actually angel invest in some companies. So I've been angel investing for the last 8 years now, starting with early stage funds and then moving into companies slightly after. So pretty excited to be, spending time working with young founders to help them scale in the region.
Well, Mohan, you launched your activity in 2007 when startup scene was nascent and was pretty much not on anyone's agenda. So it's been roughly about 14 years, and your mission of building an ecosystem around startups. This is your mission. So you're an ecosystem builder and an investor, correct? Is that the best way to?
Correct.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, how about let me actually go to Seoul right now, to Korea, and Jay is with us. Jay, hello. Just a brief introduction from you.
Hello, Sertac. Thank you for introducing me, Sertac. I am Jay Lee from South Korea, Otaku. It's very nice to meet you all today. I'm the co-founder of Otaku. And Otaku helps people authenticate online safely and easily using biometric technology. I and my friends started a business in 2016 to solve a global password problem. And passwords and OTPs are most popular authentication method since the internet age started. But unfortunately, authentication such as passwords was not designed for security and usability. Authentication is to verify that registers users and users are the same. However, current authentication only verifies numbers, letters, and symbols, not human verification. So we suggest that people use biometric technology to online authentication for safe and easy use. Thanks to our great team and partners, customers, we are getting close to our goal. And personally, I have been working security business since 2004, 12 years in video surveillance, physical security, and 6 years in biometric and online authentication, cybersecurity field. Today, I'm so happy to attend the webinar, and I'd love to share insight with many professionals here.
Thank you so much, Jay. Now, well, so that we have a nice lineup. We started with an investor. We then passed on to Mohan, who is an ecosystem builder, and then an entrepreneur, Jay, joining us from Korea. Now, let me actually, the icing on the cake, I think we have to leave the word to Vaughan right now. Vaughan, how would you describe yourself in this?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, I'm Vaughan. I'm one of the 3 co-founders, along with Sertac, Yeltekin, and Sharon Sim at Purpose Venture Capital. Our mission is to invest in tech ventures that deliver on UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. That's our mission. And as a team, we have already invested in more than a dozen startups in fintech, agri-food tech, health tech, and biotech. I would say that my tech background would really be about the fact that when I was at IBM driving change at their largest AI digital transformation project across Asia Pacific, I recognize the potential of AI, but I also recognize the challenges in deployment and executing and realizing the benefits of that. The other thing that I appreciate is my time as a Singapore government officer, leading as the Chief of Digital Health Marketplace at IEASE, which is the Singapore Government Health Tech Agency. So that gives me the privilege to understand more about the innovation landscape and ecosystem that if you want to propel or catalyze change, especially in a public service or good like healthcare. So grateful to be here and supporting the discussion today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vaughan. And it's a pleasure having you here. Well, we do have a very diverse lineup here. So in order to sort of make this conversation as fruitful as possible, let's focus on common denominators and approaches the different ideas around tech and the role of tech in a sustainable world. Let me actually ask you a first question. I'm going to take rounds to briefly answer the first question, and if you'd like to actually comment on each other's brief introduction, that's also possible. Now, looking at this incredible spectrum of tech in today's world, and there's just so many facets of it and so many layers of it, what are the key areas within tech that you think has a bright future? What makes you really, really inspired? So let me start with Mohan. I'll just change the order. What makes you inspired in tech? When you look at the tech spectrum and you say, well, this is really, really interesting. This is something where I would put my money, or I would ask others to actually focus on.
Sure, thanks, Sertac. I mean, there are quite a few interesting sectors. We've seen especially sectors like healthcare and edutech that have gotten a lot of visibility in the last 1 year, thanks to COVID measures. Fintech obviously, stands to be like the regional favorite with all the unbanked opportunities in the region. But for me personally, right, it's the food tech sector that I am personally vested in. I'm spending my own time in, and I'm making investments in, and I feel like I'm going to dedicate at least the next 5 to 10 years of my life focusing on. And here are the reasons why, right? So for me, 25% of the world's food wastage actually comes from Southeast Asia. And that is a big problem, right? If you think about it, right? If our region, that is already one of the fastest growing internet regions in the world, if it's continuing to grow at the pace that it's going to grow, then this contribution to food wastage is going to be a bigger problem. And we need startups, we need innovation to look at tackling these issues. If you look at the investment in ASEAN agri-tech and food tech companies, just for the first half of 2020 alone, that number was 350 million, which was way more than the year before, and definitely going to be increasing way more this year, right? Personally, I'm also quite excited by the fact that the Singapore government is doing the 30 by 30 initiative, which is to ensure that 30% of all their nutritional needs is taken care of locally by 2030. So it's these kind of bold, visionary things that the government is doing that I feel really makes it very exciting for this space. There's also a certain level of leadership that this region and Singapore in particular is taking, right, with respect to plant-based or lab-based food. And we saw that when Singapore government was actually the first government in the world to approve the sale of lab-grown chicken meat via this company called Eat Just. And I'm also starting to see VCs coming out where they are launching funds that are very, very specific to this particular sector. So there was one that was just launched this week called Good Startup. It was a $25 million fund where they are looking at investing in not just Southeast Asia, but global lab-based or cell-based and plant-based food companies, early stage as well as pre-IPO. So, I mean, all of these developments make me personally really very excited about this space.
Wonderful. So, food tech. Now, let me actually pass on to Jay. Jay, now you do software, you do hardware, you're in biometrics, but beyond the sector that you're in, what really excites you, what really inspires you in tech that you see around? Because Korea has an incredible, lively tech scene. There are just amazing companies coming out of Korea, especially in deep tech and in other sectors. But what catches your attention, really?
Yeah, in my case, I have only worked in the security field, so I have no choice but to talk about my field. Nevertheless, I think technologies such as AI, big data, IoT, and cloud are becoming the norm in every field, especially great SaaS models that combine AI, big data, and cloud are very, very impressive to me. Just not long ago, I was talking to a casual white hacker, and even the hacker said that he thought solutions like MS365 are really powerful for security. he recently moved to another company, and he could not access all the MS data at all. From the moment he said he would move. In the past, we used to have to check everything from PCs and to security contracts when employees left. But now it's basically stored in the cloud and controlled, making it easier for smaller companies to use the security services similar to large companies at low price, thanks to SaaS service. You know, I live in Seoul now, and I feel every day that these SaaS services change my life. I deliver what I want to eat to the office almost every day through a food delivery app. In addition, I often use laundry service app and even toilet cleaning app and food waste collection app service. I think digital transformation in all areas is very powerful, and behind it is core technologies such as AI, big data, and the cloud combined.
So well, wonderful. So you get a lot of inspiration from actually consuming some of these services that the Internet of Things and remote the digital transformation offers. So this is also one angle. You as a consumer, and I think this is a very interesting angle. Let me pass on to Hyuk-Tae. What inspires you? You do have a very diversified portfolio in Prime Ventures, but when you actually look at the tech scene, what takes you?
I think technology is wonderful, and I've decided to dedicate my career, my firm, and my time into investing in these early to growth stage technology that could really bring innovation at a scalable level. And technology is beautiful because it can reach so many people, but the more scalable it gets, the cost of the delivery actually gets drastically lower. So I think technology, and only through technology, you can reach scalable number of users. But our time and resources also limited. So at Pine, we've decided to focus on three things. One is digitization. So started with mobile and big data, AI, but inherently these are the users' needs are quite similar across different regions with a bit of a time lag in between regions. Some regions move faster than the others. So it's helpful that I can look at South Korea, where I'm originally from, China, where I spent 6 years and studied there as well, and the US, Southeast Asia, and even within Southeast Asia, the culture and the pace of technology adoptions all vary. So there's a bit of an arbitrage, so to say, I can do even in venture capital. But the key is finding the right founders who can execute really well. That's important. Increasingly so, we've expanded into two more areas. Another one is green and agri-tech. So I've been interested in the space where the mentality within the tech startup and venture capital has been grow at whatever expense and cost it takes. And even so, even within the politicians and the economists and the Fortune 500 CEOs, they were measured on the GDPs and the stock price. But I think this model is inherently broken because we're not taking into account all the damages we're doing to the earth as well as ourselves eventually. And I think COVID, in a way, is a very powerful signaling to ourselves, everyone, that if we continue to go down to this path, we're all going to be killing ourselves. So I think 2020 really was a wake-up call for me and my co-founder, and I really had a deep reflection as to how do we want to spend our time and resource and our clients' money that they have trusted us to manage, to find the right technology founders who can solve these big problems, leveraging technology. So hence there, we made several investments in agri-tech, notably Artisan, which is producing a lot of leafy vegetables here in Singapore. And they're doing a lot of amazing things to automate the production and a lot of different types of crops that had only been able to grow outside of indoor setting, but they brought it in. And I think this is gonna be very critical technology for Singapore as for its sustainability. The last thing, and I'll be quiet, is healthcare. So I think COVID, as well as even where I'm from, South Korea, we're experiencing two major problems. One is extremely low birth rate. I think South Korea is the lowest in terms of birth rate in OECD countries, which I'm not quite proud about, but it is what it is, and quickly aging population. And I think the second one is close to my heart, because my parents are also reaching that age and start to experience some health problems. So, but there are wonderful technologies that are coming out on both pharmaceutical side as well as on the medical equipment side that surprisingly have been pitched. A lot of deals are coming through. The good technology from South Korea that I can invest and help them to bring to Southeast Asia or US or Europe, or Singapore-based healthcare company that are looking to raise money and also help me get into South Korea, where there's a universal healthcare and the healthcare market is actually quite big. So again, I'm not the healthcare expert, but there's a lot of interesting innovation that's happening married with big data and AI that I want to dedicate the next 10 years.
Wonderful. Thank you. So how about Vaughan? What inspires you? I don't want to do second guessing, but let me see what inspires you.
I guess I'm always the kind of person who roots for the underdog, like, you know, so I'd like to see more reduction of inequalities, especially for women and children and communities, vulnerable groups. So what I care about is the UN SDGs in sustainable communities. What kind of climate action should we be taking to bring more access of like fresh water, clean water, and energy, as well as food security, which I think both Mohan and Hyuk-Tae has talked about, especially in this region, which is very developing. So those are very close to my heart. But what I want to talk about is really about the exciting technologies that I've been saying. And of course, AI is one of them. I think there is a lot of promise still in AI. And the fact that there's a vital characteristic that it automates and speeds up the discovery, whether that is through unsupervised learning techniques that develop the sort of intelligence that sometimes humans may not even recognize or have. So it might come up with something that would actually help us to scale up mass personalization. So I'm talking about, like, say, in healthcare with emotion recognition. Yes, it can be used to diagnose mental health issues or neurodevelopmental disorders, but it also can actually develop personalized developmental and personalized health maps, right? And I'm very interested in technologies that also the startups founders would then be looking at, how can I marry the different technologies? So Jay talks about, you know, with the IoT, AI, big data, and cybersecurity, cloud, you know, all this infrastructure, how then it will enable and scale AI, you know, as a technology across their solutions. So in particular, I'm most excited actually is synthetic biology, which is a form of redesigning and fabricate the components that is not existing in the natural world. So this is very useful when it comes to producing things like advanced biofuels, renewable chemicals, pharmaceutical intermediaries, food ingredients. So the most famous case would be what Mohan was talking about, like cultured meat from in the lab process, which is really marrying between AI and synthetic biology. So I'm really looking at this multidisciplinary approach, because the problem is too wicked, it's too big. And then the question is then, how do you marry and interoperate some of these assisting technologies, which already have some good use cases, either in South Korea or China, and then apply that hopefully in Southeast Asia to solve our food security or our health access problems.
Wonderful, thank you. So we do, as you see, I mean, there's such a diverse energy within the tech area, and there's just so many areas and sectors and subsectors that we all look at, and there's almost interest for many people to focus on different segments and verticals within the tech world. But what I hear, a lot of you are actually looking at it from a very sustainability angle, from a tech trying to solve small and big problems that affect people. And I think this is becoming a huge going concern within tech investments. Are we doing investments that actually address a solution to the world's problems? And this is sort of the common thread that I see in almost all of the discussions. Now, let me just switch a little bit and talk about, before we actually move on and talk about maybe the sustainability angle of tech, within your roles, within your activities, you sort of take a role as an entrepreneur, as an investor, or both, and you sort of look at it from managing a company or investing in a company from your particular point of view, your particular task. For example, I mean, I think start with the investors here, and I'm just looking at Hyuk-Tae. As an investor, what do you suggest to your founders? What is one thing that you tell them to do? What do you look for that actually supports your decision to invest in a company?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question, because I love startups that are growing really fast and scalable. I think that is probably the most important thing in any startup, that they're growing fast, but the growth should be sustainable, and growth should be healthy growth, not a fabricated growth. We believe strongly on the founders steering their direction to be customer satisfaction first, and not growing for the sake of growth, to fabricate the numbers so that they can raise even bigger round of funding and even higher valuation next round. I actually don't see much meaning in chasing that artificial growth. So, but a healthy growth where the customers are constantly amazed, satisfied, I think that's very important. So that's what I suggest to the tech founders, that they need to put their customer satisfaction at the forefront. But as they grow, I've seen companies at a very early stage, less than 5 people, and go to become multi-billion valuation later on. But as the organizations grow and you have more investors on your cap table, more public attention, it could sometimes be difficult to maintain that purpose and the vision that you started the company with. But I think that's what differentiates a real good founder versus from just an okay average founder, because they are that guide that keeps reminding in the organization to stick to that one principle. So I think that's very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are very much interested in companies with that put customer first rather than growth for the sake of growth first, and I think this is a clear message to companies that approach you. Let me actually ask Vaughan at this point. Vaughan, as an angel investor, a person who's done investments over the years, you've also with Purpose Venture Capitals, lately you've seen many companies, and what is a company that you actually feel it has the right elements to be invested in? What do you look for? Characteristics or traits that actually make a company stand out, respect.
Okay, I like what Hyuk-Tae was talking about, being customer first. If they are building technologies that's user-led and is sustainable, grow in a way where it's a product that somebody would say to them, "Oh, once you build this, I will buy this immediately." And that's the kind of sustainable growth that we're really looking for. But I think the best startup ideas are the ones that the founders are actually passionate about solving it. It's a problem that's close to their heart. As you can tell, the investors are already investing in things that are already close to their heart, to their purpose, to what they care about. So similarly, we would like to see founders that want to solve problems for themselves, but also a very specific delivering products and services that they think that will accelerate the outcomes for UN SDGs, for example. Okay, so that's one of the first things that come to mind. The other thing is that when it comes to sustainable technology ventures, is that we call it tech for good sometimes, but it cannot be a charity. It cannot be a social enterprise per se. It must have a business model that will demonstrate for market scale and the returns as expected. So the way we look at the team is we look at management capability, we look at the domain expertise, but also more importantly, when you are solving a wicked big problem, say in agriculture or food tech or health tech, for example, then you need to have the knowledge on how to navigate the regulations around those sectors. So this is very important as you are building your technology ventures and building your team. You must also be able to engage your stakeholders in the startup ecosystem. That will include the overall wider innovation ecosystem, like the governments and the Fortune 500s, the respected leaders in their sector, where they can collaborate either in the product development, but also reaching and distributing to the customers, especially for the hard to reach communities. And then we can include more people into having access to those products and services. So for me, what I am really hoping to find is a team that is very passionate, very purposeful, and then willing to build ethical, collaborative, but user customer-led technologies.
Okay, thank you. And here, I think it's a nice bridge to also to Mohan. You've seen many companies. You do also invest. What are certain characteristics that you look for when you invest, or companies that approach you and you look at them and you say, wow, this will stand out. This will definitely make it. Well, what are those traits?
I think, firstly, I want to say that Hyuk-Tae and Vaughan made some very succinct and solid points, which I would wholeheartedly agree with. You know, for me, it's really about looking at founders, right, that clearly understand and have a very clear vindication of the problem they're trying to solve, right? It's not so much always about the opportunity, but you know how big of a problem it is. You know, why are they so passionate about it? You know, how do they understand the problem so deeply in the first place? How has it affected them? And why is it such an important problem to them? Because the challenge with starting up is that if founders just start companies for the opportunity, it might not actually carry them forward when the going gets tough or when they're not able to see the light, right? But when they start companies with a clear idea of a problem that they are solving and that problem really drives them, that's when they can really pull through and do everything they can to make things work. I also echo Hyuk-Tae's point on sustainability. I think financial sustainability is really important. So I really prefer founders that are working towards that as opposed to just merely you know, hitting milestones for the next fundraise, right? I think it's also really important for founders to be building relationships with stakeholders, with investors early on, and not just not just when they want to fundraise, right? So I met some really good founders where they make the effort to connect and reach out to investors. They share with them what they're doing, and they actually put them like on a list where they regularly keep them updated of the business and the company and what they are up to, so that when they do invest and they are ready to ask for funding, it has been a relationship that they've been cultivating for a few months at least. So these are some of the things that I personally look out for in founders.
Okay, thank you. Well, I mean, we've sort of looked at it, the issue from the investor's angle, and we have an entrepreneur among us. And Jay, when you do approach a lot of investors, you look for funds, you also want to build relationships with them, so that if not in this round, it could be a possibility for them to invest in the following rounds. What would you like the tech investors to be more careful about when investing in and supporting entrepreneurs? What type of investors do you look for, and what is a good investor as a founder? When you find an investor, you say, okay, this is the type of investor I would like to have.
Mm-hmm. As a startup founder, some of the best things about working with investors was to create a lead. Most of the startups spend considerable, time and money creating marketing leads. In our case, we also spend a lot of time and money preparing for email marketing, internet advertising, and video production, holding a conference, seminar, so on. So I think, helping startups with multiple potential customers through the business network that investors have is one of the most effective help to create new business opportunities. Especially if startups meet investment partners abroad rather than local investors, I think they can reduce the significant risks in developing overseas market. In the case of overseas market, for the first time, investors can help to find a great team members locally from the establishment of the company through a network of investors. I think it helps to build a true partnership by better understanding of each other in the process of collaboration between startups and investors. So in summary, I think it is necessary to provide enough opportunities for startups to create as many leads as possible through the network of investors.
And is there a particular when type of an investor that you think would be more appropriate for a startup and maybe more appropriate for a later stage company? When you are a startup, you said that you're looking for, you know, investors who open their networks and build the business with you. Is that hard to find?
Yeah, I think you know, the founders, you know, most of the founders, I think they focus on only their field and that they see one direction. Yeah, you know, of course we try hard to see, you know, wide view, but you know, the investors by side of me, they can, you know, help us to see wider view. So I think that helps a lot to me, actually.
Excellent, thank you. Well,
can I add one more point?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I talked about the sort of the dilemma or the choice between customer satisfaction versus a growth, because we talk about growth so much in the startup community. And I think the same conversation can be said about the profit as the companies move from more of an early stage to later stage. So we have some experience investing into Didi and DJI. Didi is the largest mobility platform in China and places like Brazil, and DJI, which they're pretty much the monopoly in consumer drones and enterprise drones. They have about 80% plus market share in consumer drones. So I've seen as the companies reach those later stage and pre-IPO stage, talk about the profitability starts to overtake profitability and growth. But I've seen some of the most successful startups like the Smart Study team, which is the company behind Ping Pong and Baby Shark, which is a #1 short form kids content company based out of South Korea. I've learned a lot from them as I was with them from the very early stage. They initially struggled for a couple of years because they wanted to create an online classroom experience in 2010 and 11 when smartphone was introduced, but they had this initial dilemma of parents not wanting their kids to spend too much time in front of the screen, in front of the smartphone. So they struggled a bit, but they really cracked the code when they lowered the content to be the preschool age, 0 to 4 years old, and with a lot of songs in it. But they were mainly making money through their freemium model, which is you watch 1 or 2 songs for free, then you start have to pay for the rest of the songs. And 2015, they had a big debate internally whether they should be jumping onto YouTube, which is no-brainer by now because everyone's doing YouTube. But at the time, there was a big debate among the leadership team. Should we release all of our supposedly paid content for free on YouTube? And how will this work? But I think at the end of the day, they want to reach more people, more users, even outside of Korea. And YouTube was a natural extension. And I think Baby Shark, which initially took off in Indonesia and Malaysia and Middle East and UK, Europe and US, became a sensation because of this platform, YouTube. So I think, again, if they were so focused on chasing after the profit, I think they wouldn't have had this immense scale that they're having right now. They're the Baby Shark song is the most watched YouTube video right now, almost close to 9 billion. I think for sure by the end of the year, there'll be 10 billion. Collectively, they have more than 30 billion views across all of their 5,000 songs. Again, I think making sure your users, your customers always find it useful, helpful to come back every time and even tell their friends about it. I think that's part of the any startup founders that they should be pursuing every day.
So that's a great example, Baby Shark, and it does enhance the idea that focus, but focus not in the right direction, which is building a great brand and a great product or service that consumers love. And at the end of the game, it's that emotional resonance that a lot of consumers have with the services and products that makes a big difference. Now, let me, we have roughly about 15 minutes before we close the discussion. So I just want to sort of finish on a high note regarding, you know, the purpose of tech and the purpose of tech investors and entrepreneurs, especially around the sustainability agenda. We've sort of talked about it, mentioned it. From the very beginning of our discussion, you've tied what's happening in the world to the sectors that you invest in, you operate in. You are tackling important issues, and you're helping companies that tackle important issues. But to what extent right now is sustainability an agenda in the minds of tech businesses and investors? And sustainability can be defined both as business sustainability and also as you know, addressing social and environmental agendas. How much is sustainability a mantra for tech businesses and investors? And I'll start with Mohan, because you see a lot of companies, and do they really, the founders, have sustainability as one of their key characteristics and elements that they look for?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an increasing number of companies looking into this space and wanting to do more, right, in this part. Partly, I think it's heavily driven by media. It's also driven by the kind of focus media companies have and the agendas that they want to push. But I think there are a few drivers that are going to be pushing this forward, right? The first one is government level incentives. So governments are already starting to look at whether it's grant-based incentives, rebates, those kind of things that they can give out to organizations that at least try to do more or try to inculcate ESG related policies within their organizations, you know. And this has been apparent in Singapore for a while, and I think regionally is also starting to take shape. But sometimes when you want to effect change in organizations, the governments have to give some kind of a carrot for that to happen. So we've already seen that happen. The second thing is, I think it's starting to become a bigger issue with regards to employee retention. So I mean, if you look at COVID and what it has done to remote work, right? And even employees now have a larger opportunity to be part of an organization that maybe they could not because of where they were and stuff like that, right? So employee retention, right, is also a big issue, and especially with the millennial workforce, the younger group, right? ESG elements are a bigger part of the conversation when it comes to thinking about joining a company, right? It's not just purely about the pay packages anymore, right? And the benefits. It's how are companies adopting ESG policies, and how is my work, for example, as a young member, contributing, whether is it positively or negatively, to the world through these policies. So I think that's also definitely become a bigger issue. And lastly, right, the businesses that you work for or work with are also starting to ask for it. A lot of the larger companies like your Apples and all that of the world, right, have started to ensure that the various players in their supply chain adopt these practices, you know, and if they don't, they just don't do business with them. You know, a lot of organizations that we work with also ask for ESG policies that we have put in, diversity policies and these kind of things. And they do score these issues when wanting to do business with you. So it has also started to become a bit of a business need and a business requirement, especially if you do business with larger firms, right? So and this trend is definitely not going to go away. Right? So that's my high level view on this.
Wonderful. So it's a trend that will remain here. Well, how about Jay? How do you address sustainability in your business?
Yeah, for sustainable social development, especially for the sustainability of a society where technology is commonplace, I think the security should be the most basic. In the sense, I and my team have been working on the stability of authentication that connects the physical and digital world. 80% of all data breaches causes are due to passwords, and weak passwords are a very dangerous factor in the upcoming cloud, autonomous driving, and IoT era. In the future, personal information needed for authentication is stored only on personal devices like smartphones, PCs, and biometric security keys. And service providers can continue to develop a safer digital life by creating authentication platforms that do not own any personal information. So for the sustainable development of this new authentication infrastructure, I think it is necessary to create an ecosystem in which various industries collaborate. So in the field of authentication, industry leaders from around the world participated to eliminate the risk of passwords and create next generation online authentication standard. And leaders together, we all founded an alliance called FIDO, the Fast Identity Online. And the FIDO standard is currently used by about 3 billion people every day. And more new authentication services are expected to be released to move to the next generation of passwordless authentication. Yeah.
So thank you very much. Alliances, I think that's a huge area that I think maybe in the next webinars we could dedicate a section on partnerships, alliances, and that's necessary for a sustainable future. Let me actually tie what we've been talking about sustainability with one of the questions that participant Timothy asks. And I'll revert to Vaughan on this. Well, he's wondering what is the trade-off between social and commercial enterprise. So is it easier to socialize a commercial enterprise person, founder, or is it easier to commercialize a social person? I mean, do you see that particular trade-off? You think commercial should be distinct from social impact, or is there a nice bridge and link between those two worlds?
So early on, we stress on the importance of finding the right founding team, right? The founders have to care about the problem they're trying to solve so they could create and build innovations to solve them. So with that in mind, I would say that if that person cares a lot about the problem and it will put all out, all in, and to really pick up their commercial capabilities. And that would include sometimes not being the CEO, be the scientist, be the product developer, be the cheerleader, be the advocate, be the government relationship person. But sometimes you may not be the best person to drive that business. However, build a founding team that will incorporate all these capabilities so that you can be a sustainable, commercially driven, yet strong enterprise with social environmental outcomes.
So you can actually bridge those two worlds. So they're not distinct worlds, but
only if the founder or the creator is willing to put the mission first, not the founders first. You know, put the solution first. And then he or she will then create the right environment, the right team, the right partnerships to drive that solution.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I mean, I think it's a nice run up to the sort of the last comment that we'll ask you to do. What do you see now that you look at it from a venture capital perspective in the next 5 to 10 years, looking at the sector as a whole? You think sustainability trend is here to stay? Is that going to be one of the metrics that we're going to apply when we invest? Is this going to be something that LPs and GPs will focus on, or is it just a fad and once the pandemic is over, we'll go back to our usual selves?
Yeah, I think for me, the topic of sustainability will be integral to any businesses, and actually it should just be embedded into their business and their mantra. I think there's just too much overhype about the term ESG. Even in the financial circle, last year, they're all about profitability, the stock price, earnings per share. And this year, they're suddenly, I'm the biggest ESG proponent in the asset management circle, and they're raising billions of dollars. And I think it's just very interesting. I think that will pass. I think that's fad. But in terms of businesses, for me, thinking about environment, thinking about social responsibility, I think it should just be very natural. Just like we care about ourselves being healthy. We want to do the right thing. I don't go out there advertise myself as I don't break any things. I don't steal any things. I mean, it should just be very basic things that we do. And we should care about where we live, people around us. I don't think it's something that you should be advertising as what your business do, but it should already be sort of the default setting for any business. Yeah, so that's how I see it. But I think it's interesting for a lot of these startups, like Rakisen, their entire business is built around vertical farm. So where Singapore, our future generation will think, how did the previous generation just constantly fly in jets to flying these vegetables and eggs? And it's just quite stupid, to be honest. But there was no real company locally that was working at a scalable level and pesticide-free, fresh, nutritious, local produce for the people of Singapore. But I think inherently the sustainability is built in there. For another example of Baby Shark, they just did a collaboration with PUB here in Singapore to create a song, very catchy song to tell kids about saving water and closing your tab. You can go and search it on YouTube, PUB Baby Shark. And I think it's just another very natural way for, not educating, I wouldn't say, but yeah, just naturally telling kids what to do when they're using the tap to save water. Also, there's a lot about the content about diversity. And right now, the media these days have become too extreme to catch our attention. But there's a lot about kids' diversity, how we look, and even the physical difficulties we have. We're all very unique and special in some way. So that song was also created. So in a way, I think the businesses should really just embody both the environmental and social responsibility just very naturally. And I don't think, I hope that as a manager start advertising less that they're ESG fund, but just really just do it as a default. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think this is a nice way to finish our discussion. I think, rather than talk about it, we should do it and demonstrate it and prove it. I think this is what's the next 10 years sustainability agenda. I would like to thank all of you for attending the discussion as panelists, and I'd like to thank the participants. Thank you very much for your contributions, and hope to see you in another webinar in the next months. And so watch out for Purpose Venture Capital's announcements, and we hope to see you all again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jay. Bye.